This video will cover cutaneous T-cell lymphoma and its associated diseases mycosis fungoides and Sézary syndrome. Let's begin by anchoring ourselves. To remember T-cells, just note the meal that the main character will be enjoying shortly. It's a taco from the Taco Cell restaurant. Taco Cell sounds like T-cells and will help us remember that portion. Now to remember lymphoma, just notice his green clothing. Since lymph things are normally represented in green, that is what we will use. To remember cutaneous, it's obvious because just look at his overall skin condition. Okay, now two more prompts to help us remember mycosis fungoides and Sézary syndrome. This mushroom he's holding will remind us of mycosis fungoides for obvious reasons. And lastly, to remember Sézary syndrome, do you know who this is? Exactly, this is Caesar, the Roman dictator, Julius Caesar. Caesar sounds like Sézary, and that is what we're going to use. Alright, now let's talk about specifics. This lymphoma is composed of CD4 positive T cells. This will be represented by this door here since the number 4 sounds like the word door. Ignore the sign on the door for now, we're going to come back to it. One of the classic morphologic features are cerebriform nuclei in the lymphoid cells, and without much explanation, we'll easily remember this fact. Mycosis fungoides is cutaneous T-cell lymphoma that involves lymph nodes. Sézary syndrome is when there is a triad of erythroderma, generalized lymphadenopathy, and clonal T cells in skin, lymph nodes, and blood. I'm not going to create prompts to remember specifically when cutaneous T-cell lymphoma becomes MF and Sézary syndrome. I think it's not too difficult to remember. Let's focus for a bit on Sézary syndrome now. In addition to the Sézary syndrome clinical triad, at least one of the following 3 criteria must be met for the diagnosis. The first one is an absolute Sézary cell count of more than 1,000. The second one is a CD4 to CD10 ratio of 10 or more. And the third one is loss of 1 or more T-cell antigens. Let's cover each one of those. To represent an absolute Sézary cell count of greater than 1,000, our character Caesar has the number 1,000 on his clothing. Okay, now let's come back to the sign on the door though that says that you need to be at least 10 years old to open it. And this door leads into a den full of CDs. So this is to represent the next diagnostic criteria for Sézary syndrome, which is the CD4 to CD10 ratio of 10 or more. The fact that this sign is on the door will help us remember 10 CD4s to 1 CD10 ratio. And remember from other videos that CD10 is represented as a den full of CDs since the word den sounds like the number 10. And the last of the 3 criteria for Sézary syndrome is loss of 1 or more T-cell antigens. This is represented by this spilled taco here since these tacos from the Taco Cell restaurant represent T-cells for us. Okay, now we've covered a lot about Sézary syndrome. Let's go back to general characteristics of this lymphoma. CD2, CD3, CD4, and CD5 are expected to be positive. To represent CD2, look at these nice shoes that this character here is wearing. The word shoe sounds like the number 2. For CD3, we have a couple of prominent trees here, and the word tree sounds like the number 3. For CD4, we've already discussed that it is represented by this door. And for CD5, we've got this beehive hanging from the tree. The word hive sounds like the number 5. CD25 is expected to be negative, and we're going to remember this by this Tweety character, which Tweety sounds like the number 20. And this character is daydreaming about a beehive, which again sounds like the number 5. Altogether, since he actually doesn't have a beehive and is just daydreaming about it, we're going to remember negative CD25. CD8 is also expected to be negative, and as you can tell, there's no gate of any sort in this image, and gates are the usual representation for CD8 since the number 8 sounds like the word gate. Okay, and the last thing to cover is that this lymphoma classically loses CD7. In other videos, CD7 is represented by a CD with a halo on it because halos are associated with heaven, and the word heaven sounds like the number 7. But since in this case we lose CD7, it would only make sense to represent it with something that is the opposite of a halo, just like these guys here.